Mindset number 6, winners use the creativity of their imaginations. Now, as we touched on in the last mindset, we all go through challenges. There's going to be things standing in our way as we go along through this journey. And a lot of times people, when they hit those barriers, guess what? They quit. Well, you've already made up your mind that you're willing to take on some sensible risks and feel the fear and do it anyway. And so as you're going here, everyone reaches these, I'll just call them plateaus, where they feel like they've been working. They see a little bit of success as they're going along, and then all of a sudden it just kind of stalls, right? And so winners, when they get to that point, they don't give up. They get creative. Now let me show you a little bit about what I'm talking about here. The first thing I want to do here is introduce you to my pet moose here, okay? Now you got to watch this next part here very closely. Here he goes. Here's my pet moose here. Watch closely, watch closely. Oh, that's sick. All right, now why would I do this? Okay, to show you this particular example right here, I'll just call it moose droppings. If I were to tell you right now that there are companies out there that take moose droppings, they put them in like a food dehydrator, they take all the moisture out of them, they put a lacquer finish on them, and then they turn around and sell them as jewelry, would you believe me? Well, if you don't, hit the pause button right now and go and Google moose poop jewelry. And as you do, you'll see it all over the place. Matter of fact, there's several different companies in the United States that actually make those things. And they range anywhere from North and South Dakota to Maine to all the way up into Alaska even. And those people actually make these things, and they sell this jewelry all around the world. I mean, who would have thought of it? Maybe you've never even seen this before. But just look at the creative part of this whole thing. Somebody came up with this wild idea, and they put it out there, and I guess it just grabbed hold one day and took off. Well, here's another little one, and for us older people, we'll remember this one from back in the early 70s, the pet rock. Yeah, they used to sell these pet rocks in grocery stores and toy stores, also on the counter at most of your convenience stores. I remember when I was growing up, here's this little box there that had a little bit of a nest in it and a pet rock, and it said that carry your friend with you or your pet rock with you wherever you go. It will help you in times of trouble. I mean, there was all these little things that it said. Well, people bought into the craze, and they bought them. As a matter of fact, the last report I read, the gentleman who came up with that idea sold 1.7 million of them at one time there. And it's just a rock, guys. Well, what are your creative ideas? You've had ideas come to you from time to time, I'm sure. Did you do anything with them? Most of the time, the answer to that's no. We'll get ideas, little flashes of thought, or we'll get an idea on how to make an existing product better. But then what do we do with that idea? Okay, so there is two parts to this using your creativity as using your creativity or your imagination. Because again, when you get stuck, you stop and you say, all right, what haven't I done yet? What haven't I thought of? Maybe go do a little bit more research out there and find somebody who's doing a little something different than what you're doing and give that a shot. And the other thing is these random thoughts that come up from time to time, why aren't you taking them and doing anything with them? Okay. Well, let me talk to you a little bit more about that, and it helps to understand how our brain works. So let's delve into that for just a moment here. Let's talk a little bit about your conscious mind versus your subconscious mind. Now, I know we hear these things all the time, and this is by no means an exhaustive research study on how the brain works. There's so many parts to the brain, and there's new doctors are coming up with new theories and new discoveries all the time about how powerful this thing is between our ears here. But I want to just focus on two parts of the brain. One that's referred to as the conscious mind, and the other is the subconscious mind, because they have specific roles that they play. The conscious mind is predominantly on the left side of your brain. You'll hear that all the time about left brain thinkers. Well, that's where we store all of our knowledge, and we use that part of our brain to figure things out, to problem solve and everything else. Where the right side of our brain, or the subconscious mind, is more of that creative part. Now, let's talk about the distinct roles here. On the conscious side, that's the part of your brain that takes in information. Matter of fact, that's what's happening right now. You're listening to me with that part of your brain. You're taking in all this information that I'm discussing here, and you're making decisions about it. You're thinking, oh, does this guy have any idea or any clue what he's talking about? Is he full of it? Okay, one of the weaknesses, however, of the conscious mind is it literally only has the ability to focus on one thing at a time. Now, I've read all kinds of reports that say, oh, no, Brad, it can focus on anywhere from 13 to 16 things at any one given time. Okay, I agree with that, but really, if you think about it, what happens is it goes back and forth between all of those multiple things really quick. So you're focused on me right now, and then, ooh, did your brain go to something else? Did it see something else there on the screen? Is it hearing something in the other room? See how fast it can go between those thoughts. However, when you're truly focused, it only has the ability to focus on one thing at a time. All right? Now, let's explore the subconscious mind and what the characteristics are of that. It is by far the most powerful part of your brain. Okay, it controls all of your bodily functions, your breathing, your eyes blinking, your heart pumping. Can you imagine if we had to think about that all day? Oh my gosh, I got to keep my heart beating. Breathe. Make sure I'm breathing. All right, hold on, everybody. I got to stop for a minute and make sure all of my bodily functions are working before I can continue this conversation. No, your brain is just automatically taking care of that. And if you're ever deep in thought and you forget to breathe, guess what happens? Your brain all of a sudden starts to shut down a little bit, and you go, oh man, I haven't had a breath for a little bit. Well, what part of your brain told you that? It's the subconscious. Here is an extremely key point, however. Your subconscious mind that's the part of your brain where your dreams are, and it's also where your creativity is. It's there on the right side. You've heard of right brain thinkers, and that's because they have that ability to come up with these creative things. The other thing with this, as I say, the most powerful part of your brain, while you're sitting here listening to me, what's happening is your brain is actually monitoring everything else in the room or everything that's around you. It's monitoring the temperature. It's monitoring any sounds. That's why you can be focused on something, and then all of a sudden your brain will tell you, oh, something's going on in another room. There's somebody walking, or somebody shut a door, or whatever. It's constantly monitoring all those things, so you don't have to. And it takes in all the information that's around you. So from the time you were born till now, it's all this information has been put into your brain and set up in these little folders everywhere. There's some really cool examples I'm going to give you here to really cement this and to help you to understand how powerful this part of your brain is. And the other key aspect of it is your subconscious mind does not know the difference between fantasy and reality. Matter of fact, let me bring that up here really quick. I call it a rule of the mind. Your imagination or your subconscious mind does not know the difference between reality and fantasy. In other words, whatever you tell it to do, it does. You see that? The conscious mind is where you make the decisions with. As soon as you make a decision and that feeds into the subconscious, guess what? It's just going to do it. Because I hear this all the time, and there's so many research studies out there that'll prove what I'm talking about. Like they've done studies with people who have always said, oh, I have a terrible memory. There's just no way I can remember any of those things. Oh, things just come and go. Well, you're telling your brain that. What does your brain do? It actually goes in and says, all right, I'm going to shut down that part of the brain where your memory is. Now, if you were to take the time and actually tell your brain, you know what, I remember things quite quickly and easily. Then once you were to be able to convince yourself of that part of your brain starts to warm up again and starts to actually function at a higher level. But as we go along here, there's ways to train your brain that are effective and ways that are not so effective. And we'll get into that here in just a little bit. But for this mindset, the key thing is to understand this concept right here. Get creative. Don't give up. Stop for a minute and say, all right, what I'm doing is not working. Be honest with yourself. Remember how we did in mindset number 1. you're going to have to do this a lot on your journey here, is to pause and be honest with yourself. Am I making the progress that I want to make, or do I need to do something a little bit different? Do I need to change up the way that I'm doing things? With this one, take the time to get creative. Okay, what I'm doing is not working. What else can I do? Because I like this little saying here that I have. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always be what you've always been. All right. So I'm going to show you a series of pictures here. And these are pretty fun. I've had a lot of fun with these over the years. But let's go for it, and let's see what happens here. So what I'd like you to do is, you're seeing this picture here. Just focus on what you see, and I want you to count the black dots. Well, like everybody else, guess what? They're bouncing all over the place, right? Yeah. Well, the actuality is there are no black dots there. But the fact that I ask you to count the black dots, your subconscious mind is actually creating them. So it's going, there's no black dots there, but I'm supposed to find black dots, so therefore I'm looking for black dots, and I actually see some, and they're bouncing all over the place. Isn't that kind of cool? All right, let's go to the next one. Is this book looking towards you, or is it looking away from you? And again, depending on who's in front of me, they'll say it both ways. They'll say, well, it's looking towards me, it's looking the other way. Well, stop for a minute and ask yourself, if you're seeing it one way, tell your brain to see it the other way. So if it's seeing it looking towards you, tell your brain, all right, show me where it is. Could also be looking away from me as well. Notice that shift that happens in your brain. Okay, well, I'm not too, I don't know exactly which side of the brain sees what. What I do know is you actually have to switch from one side of your brain to the other to see it the other way. Does that make sense? And so if you have a tendency to be a right brain person, you're going to see things a certain way. If you have a tendency to be a left brain person, guess what? You're going to see things that way. And sometimes you got to push your thoughts over into the other side in order to see it differently. Okay, here's another one. Do you see a rabbit or a duck? Or do you see both? Okay, if you're only seeing the rabbit, well, the duck, he has his bill pointing the other way there. Okay, and if you only see the duck, that's the rabbit's ears. The bill is the duck, or the bill is the ears. All right, take a moment to make sure that you see both of them. This is an exercise in trying to use both sides of your brain here. Okay. What about this one here? How many legs does the elephant have? And now that your mind's going all over the place, well, see, again, it's a matter of what's being asked. If I asked you how many feet does the elephant have, that's pretty simple. You're going to count 5. So the artist that did this up, he magically kind of created the 5 feet down there. But the fact that you're looking for legs, your brain automatically goes to what it's used to. It goes to the body of the elephant, especially that middle leg there. And as you'll see, it follows that down, and there's no foot at the bottom of it. So therefore, the scrambling starts happening, and your brain's starting to create those legs there. Well, how many are there? Well, I guess there could be as many as 8. Who knows? Again, just notice what's happening here. Now, do you see the face of a Native American, or do you see the Eskimo? This one's kind of tough for people. And I like to throw this little caveat in there too. Women tend to get these things a little quicker than men do. Believe it or not, men's brains are different than women's brains. And oh boy, do I get in trouble for talking about that from from time to time. But women's brains are able to see things because they're naturally have the ability to multitask. So therefore, they're going to see it quicker. Whereas guys, our brain has a tendency to take longer to focus on things, or they can focus on something for longer periods of time. And so we get stuck on one way of seeing it, and it takes us a little bit to switch over to the other side. By now, I hope you've seen it. If not, email me and I'll help you figure it out. Now, do you see the man playing the horn here, or do you see the woman's silhouette? Or do you see both? All right. Oh, let's go back to the other one. This is a popular one here that a lot of people see. Do you see the young woman, or do you see the old woman, or do you see the young girl? Okay. Again, this is sixes. Sometimes people see the old lady first, and some people see the younger lady first. The younger lady is looking away. It's almost like she's looking over her shoulder and is about to take off in a certain direction, where the older lady, you just see her face and she's kind of looking down with her chin dug into her shoulder. Anyway, you can pause on any of these and really look at them. Now, this one here is fun. The horizontal lines, are they parallel or do they slope? If you're like most people, you're going to see the slope in there. Well, why is that? Actually, if I could figure out a way to take out those black boxes that you see in there, the lines are actually parallel. But what makes them have the illusion that they do is the boxes are actually not totally square. If you'll see on one side of them, they go up a little bit. And then on one row, you'll see it's on the other side. And it's that little subtle shift there where there's actually the top of the box goes up into the line. You'll see that if you pause it and take a look at it. Yeah, it's kind of cool, huh? So that's actually what's creating the illusion, but the lines are actually parallel. All right, on this one, keep staring at that black dot in the middle. And after a while, that gray haze that you see around that, it'll start to shrink. Give you a minute to have that happen. Again, why is the gray haze fading away? Well, this is something that we all go through too. Anytime we encounter a new situation or something new, think about it. Have you ever been into somebody else's house that's new that you've never been in before? Does it feel like, oh, wow, this is cool. This house is just awesome. But if you go back to it a couple more times, what happens? It's just normal. Have you ever been to a town where you had this feeling, man, everything is so different here. It's so lively. It's so whatever your experience was. You go back a second or third time, what happens? It's not so vibrant anymore, is it? It's like, oh, okay, everything's about the same. Well, again, this is a condition of your brain that when we see something new, it sucks in all this new information. It's excited to learn. Oh my gosh, here's all this new stuff. I want to take it all in. But then after we kind of get a grip on it, guess what? It becomes old hat and we just kind of, yeah, okay. It loses it. Remember how I talked to you a little bit about back when we were discussing informational versus transformational learning, how when we get that powerful thought and then it starts to fade after 72 hours. Well, that's what's happening in the brain. Unless we take that new knowledge that we have or that new inspiration and do something with it, nothing's going to change. The gray haze is just going to fade out and you won't see it anymore. All right? Pretty interesting. Do you see the woman in the vanity or do you see the skull? All right, this one I'm just going to let you look at. This one plays with my brain too. All right. Now this one is pretty cool. This is actually a study they did over in England at some point. But what I'd like you to do is pause for a minute, okay, and look at this. And as you're looking at it, I would like you to do this, say them out loud, all right? Say the actual color of the lettering and not what the lettering says. So that first one where you see where it says yellow, blue, orange, actually say the color. Green, red, blue. Go ahead and take a minute and do it as fast as you can, but say them all out loud. So that first one is green, red, blue. I can sense your frustration. Well, let me tell you what's happening here. They call this a left-right brain conflict. The left side of your brain actually sees the word. It actually sees the letter, where the right side of your brain is what sees the colors. So what's happening here, the first thing you see is the word. And why do we see words first? Because that's how we're conditioned. We're conditioned that way from school. Reading. You got to see the words first. But then you have to pause and you actually have to switch over to the right side of your brain to see the color. And then you have to pull that back over to the left side of your brain to actually say what color it is. Therefore, you say green on the first word. That's what's happening there. Again, women will have a tendency to get this quicker than men. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. But hopefully this helps you understand a little bit, because your brain just, again, there's so many powerful things in there. And if you stop to, I hope at this point I've helped you to establish that creativity is inside of you. You just need to look for it. And here's a good example or a good activity that you can do. Either later today or sometime tomorrow when you leave your house. What I'd ask you to do is pick one color. I don't care what it is, blue, red, green, yellow, and say it over and over to yourself. I will see this color, whether I'll just say blue. I will see everything that's blue today. I will see everything that's blue today. I will see everything that's blue today. And tell yourself that 100 times before you leave your house. Then start looking. And I'd like you to experience that first and then come back and report to me. Hopefully in some of the notes that you see or the comment sections on these videos. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. It's a pretty cool experience. But let this be or serve as a way of helping you to understand how powerful your brain is. If you're looking for opportunities, you will see them. If you're looking for negative things to go on in your life, you will find them. Whatever you're looking for, you will find. And now here's one of the biggest aspects of this whole thing. Our brain has around 1,500 words per minute going through it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It never stops. Okay? However, whatever those words are saying up here is what you're seeing in your world. This world's a pretty big and powerful place. There's a lot of things to see. But what happens is we almost get on autopilot. We've developed the belief systems that we have, and then those words are just repeating themselves over and over and over again, and that's what we're seeing as we go throughout our daily lives. And if you want to change the way things are in your life, then as I'm saying here, if you want to change those things, then you must take charge of the mind boogie or the dialogue that's playing out in your mind. I call that mind boogie because, again, I've been there. I get tired of hearing those negative thoughts in my head, and it takes me a little while of bouncing back and forth to get them to shut up. And so I have to say, you know what? I will not let you affect me anymore. Here's my new way of seeing myself. This is who I am now. And it takes some work, but I'll show you a little bit more when we get into the next mindset, how you can take charge of those words and do something pretty powerful with them. Anyway, enjoy your new learning of this powerful thing in between your ears that you call your brain. It is a very powerful thing. And hopefully these next two mindsets will help you understand even more on how to take charge of that power that you have and put it to your use.